Good morning. It is Saturday, March 12th, and today I just want to pop in briefly to talk about two things. You always see me sharing ideas that make it easier, also sharing ideas about being aware of what gets in the way. The what gets in the way, the what if I don't, what if things go wrong, is a place that people often don't go. Usually because they don't trust that they have the tools to deal with what they find. If they go, "Why did I not do this? Why didn't it work on Saturday? Why didn't I get back on the wagon when I got back from sailing?" Right? There are ways that we beat ourselves up when we don't know that we have tools, that we don't know that we have a recovery process or a way to bounce back. So I want to talk about, first of all, habit stacking, because if you had a tough day, often it's because the initial cue wasn't in that day. And so you know that you will bounce back on a day that the cue reappears, right? We know that habit stacking, habits are all about cue, craving, reward, and response. And I want to just cover very briefly habit stacking. So you'll notice the most important thing about habit stacking, it isn't, I see the cue to have a cup of coffee, but instead I go from that cue into the doing the next habit. I do the first habit. If you try to hijack the first habit, this all goes wrong. So you get the cue for the first habit, have a cup of coffee. There's my craving. I go make my cup of coffee, have a sip. There's my reward of drinking the coffee. At the place where I have the cup of coffee, I then pick up my journal, and because I see it sitting there, pick it up because I want to fulfill that habit, go write it, feel great about it. As I set down my journal, what could I do next? Might be grab another cup of coffee, but it might be put the journal over by the coffee maker again so that I remember to journal tomorrow. That's to finish the responsive journaling. And then if I've got something on the way back, then it might be a set of weights, 8-pound weights, to just do a few simple curls to remind me that I am the kind of person who exercises, and into the next step. If you haven't designed your habit stack yet, or if you accidentally hijacked the cue for a previous habit to do the new habit instead of afterwards, have a look at that today. And I'd want to talk just a bit more about things that do get in the way. So if you're really caught up in the idea that only perfection is progress, this can feel horrible, can feel like you are failing. So stop it, first of all. But second, note that habits do have cues. They do respond in the environment. So if you're the kind of person who wants to do something every day and you've designed it into a 6 o'clock in the morning routine on a weekday, and now it's the weekend and you're sleeping in till 7:30, maybe even 8, then that can make it really challenging. You might beat yourself up because now you did not do the thing that you'd been doing all week. Again, awareness is magical. Be aware that you're holding yourself to an inappropriate standard, and that you need to have a look at on days that I get up at 8 o'clock. And if it's a Saturday and the kids come running in to have breakfast together, it would be inappropriate for you to say, "No, kids, I have this other habit that I need to do, or this other behavior that I've decided is going to replace family breakfast time." Oh, that would be so bad, right? So really shine a light on that. Be aware of, generally, the reason that we're not doing a habit on a certain day is a one that comes from a good intention, one that has a powerful positive reason. So take some time with self-compassion. You can look at everything. Notice when something exceptional takes over your schedule as well, like when Georgie's sailing, right? When they are on sailing days, there's 3 days where they're really focused on moving their boat from one island to another. Trying to do all her other habits in that time would be totally inappropriate, overwhelming, a place of guilt and doubt and frustration. Don't do that. So, how do you respond to weekends or other times when that first behavior is not even there? Another example when that first behavior isn't there is for follow up. People who beat themselves up about sales follow up. Here's how that often happens for you, right? A prospect says, "Hey, I'll get back to you next Tuesday." And you're like, "Yeah, awesome. I'll wait to hear from them." That's your next step in your mind. Is it appropriate? Probably not. You can say, "Yay, they're going to get back to me next week. I'm going to put a follow up reminder in my calendar for the day after or for 4:30 that day in case I have not heard from them." Otherwise, if there are crickets when you expected a response, there may be part of you that has this niggling, something's missing. I must be forgetting something on the day that you expected to hear from your client. That doesn't mean it will come to the conscious mind, and it doesn't mean that it will land in your calendar as an item to do that naturally happens. So we talked earlier about installing into your calendar. If it hits my calendar, it gets done. So only putting into your calendar things that you will actually do. This tiny 2-minute thing, quick phone call to follow up or an email to follow up, popping that into your calendar on the following day is part of the response as a habit stack, right? I check my email, I got a response back from the prospect. What do you do about that response? Where do you move that email? And is there something to put in your calendar after you've moved the email into the waiting folder in your inbox? Cool. Cool little techniques, right? The simple things that can transform how you can trust yourself and rely on yourself. Love to hear how you are habit stacking. Maybe your ideas will inspire others. If you need a little bit of help with this, reach out. Let me know how we can do a quick 10-minute brainstorm on the habits that you're trying to implement. We're almost 2 weeks in. On Monday, when I talk again, we'll talk about taking away those other habits by making them invisible. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, 2 weeks in, I feel worse than when we started. Excellent. There is always a breakdown before the breakthrough where you've raised awareness of the challenge and it can feel like you're not making the progress you'd like to. But you know what? 2 weeks, I don't know how old you are listening to this, watching this right now, but 2 weeks is a teeny tiny part of your life. And this discomfort of awareness with tools to succeed can often feel tough because you want the success now that you can see it, feel it, taste it, imagine having the success. So if you're not having it yet, that level of frustration may feel worse than any other time because you're in process, you're in progress. So this is totally normal. Cut yourself some slack. Think about some of the things I've talked about today about when the cue is missing, whether you're appropriately designing your habit stack, and times when it isn't appropriate to do that habit at all. There are some days that, I don't work on Sundays. So there are a bunch of habits that I do Monday to Saturday. I do typically have a work day on Saturday that's a lot of fun. But those have a bunch of habits in them that I don't do on Sundays. And there are different days that I do things in a different order as well. But as long as my cue is in place, life is golden. I will see you on Monday. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I can't even tell what the day looks like yet. My blinds are still closed, but it's going to be a beautiful day. How can you make it more easier, more effortless, and more fun?